I'm just gonna move the camera so that it is not facing the piano yet. Okay. Can you guys see me? Oh, hi, people are on here already. Hi, Canon Guy 1. I'm pretty good, how are you? Welcome to the pre-show fun, entertainment. How are you? We're gonna get started in a few minutes. That's great. So, I have my laptop down here, that's why I keep looking down. Have you been playing piano? So for those of you new, I have a friend named Pan, and he's also in the chat, and you guys can feel free to ask him anything. Oh, for about 5 years you've been playing piano. That's awesome. Yeah, so feel free to type anything in the chat, in the comment box. I'll take a look once in a while when I can, and Pan has told me he'll be sticking around. If you guys are on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, I'm starting to get a lot more active on Instagram. It's because I like to follow pictures and musicians. Ooh, any tips for sight reading? I can add that to the queue. That's a really good question, actually. And I thought what might be fun next time around is if I get a new piece of music and sight read it together. I'm not sure if that will be interesting at all. Okay. Let's get started then, since it's officially 11:01 and we said we'd start at 11. So, hi everyone, my name is Grace and I'm from Marty Den, and you are likely from Marty Den as well. Today I wanted to run a music hangout for us to kind of chat and get to know each other and ask questions. It's basically a time for us to hang out, and last time we ran it was a lot of fun. We got a lot of fun questions, and of course Pan was watching too, so you know it was all, I feel like I had a lot of fun. So today I decided to run it again, and it's going to be a little bit more structured. One of the readers, Rosie, suggested having, more of a structured format. So we're going to try it today, and we'll see how it goes. So what I'm going to do is I have a list of questions that I got earlier, and I'm going to go through and answer those first, and then I've also gotten a lot of requests for, hearing my playing and all that. So I'm going to play 2 Christmas pieces, and then I'll get to answering the live audience questions. Yeah, how does that sound? Okay, I just realized that it's a bit finicky to look at the screen and also look at the questions. So please bear with me. Okay, so first of all, Thank you for your questions, if you sent me a question. If you didn't send me a question, that's okay. You still have many more chances. Ooh, okay, awesome. People seem to like it. Okay, let's start with this one. This is kind of like an overview, not related to music, and I thought that would be really interesting to talk about first. So Rosie says, Grace, I've browsed your website and see that music isn't your only life. Your genius shows in other areas as well. Would you mind briefly telling the story of your interest and involvement in music? How did you get to where you are today? You have a fascinating diversity of skills and interests. So thank you, Rosie. I started music when I was younger, and I went through the whole like exams and teaching, and I taught music in elementary schools, and taught a couple of adults as well. I did, I went through music theory, so all that fun stuff, and I'm a classical pianist. I later on got to playing more pop music and jazz music because it's not a bad thing to diversify. In terms of telling the story of your interest and involvement in music, so I started music when I was around 8, and that was just for fun. I really liked music, and I was never forced into it or anything like that. How did you get to where you are today? So that is a really good story. It involves a lot of, practice. I did practice at least an hour a day, as far as I can remember. It's a lot of practice. It's a lot of putting yourself out there and performing. One thing I also caution people is that, when you get a piano teacher, it might be not the right piano teacher for you, because I did go through a lot of piano teachers to find piano teachers that were suitable for me. And, some of them are different in their goals, some of them are different in their teaching, and it is a real thing that you outgrow piano teachers. So that's essentially it. It's a bit disjointed, I realize, but I mean, my interest and involvement in music has been quite long. I also like to write, as you may or may not know. So I started a blog, and I started to put my notes on there and some of the lessons that I was teaching on there, and it turns out that people really enjoyed it. So here we are today. So thanks for the question, Rosie. That was really sweet of you. Okay, so next question. This question is from Bob, and I got it on Instagram. He says, who is your favorite composer? So that's a loaded question. My favorite composer, classically, should be a tie between Rachmaninoff, Beethoven, Liszt, and that's it. So classically, it's one of those three. But non-classically, I really like, in terms of pop music, I really like anything that sounds a little bit more, 90s, or way back when Michael Jackson was cool. I really like things that have a good beat. I do like Chopin. Canon Guy 1. Didn't I say Chopin? Sorry, I must have missed it. I do like Chopin. Yeah. It because it's easier for me to play, because it doesn't have a beat, like a solid beat to it. So I find it more fulfilling to play things that are expressive. Next thing, Hassan from Instagram says, David, okay, don't laugh at this, David Bowie or Bruno Mars? I prefer Bruno Mars, just because I feel like his music is more finished. I'm not sure. I don't know the other composer that well. Okay. So, piano books and about your blog, have you ever thought about doing online piano lessons? And this question is from Bob again, but not through Instagram. He submitted it. Okay, so piano books and your blog. So right now, I play a lot of music that's not from any official repertoire. I play music that either I find that I like from a show, or from I randomly hear it and I look up the lyrics and I find that, oh, this is a song by so and so. I'm gonna try to play it. Lately, I've been trying to play a lot of things by ear, so I've really gotten into improvising and playing by ear, which is really cool. It was really hard at first, and I can get into that a little since I've gotten some questions about improv as well, so that can be one of the topics that we talk about if you guys are interested. In terms of my blog, the music that I list on my blog are either things that I'm currently obsessed with or things that people send to me over time, and I start to like them more as time goes on. And have I ever thought about doing online piano lessons? That's an interesting question. So before the whole like iPad thing got popular and, you know, smartphones, there was first talk about piano lessons, and back then it wasn't very viable in terms of internet connection and all that fun stuff. But now I think, you know, technology has really evolved, so I think piano lessons could be a good idea because it gives you access to, you know, a lot of experts and talent that you can learn from without leaving your home or without leaving your city, even if they're in a different country. So I think it's a good idea. Have I ever thought about doing it myself in terms of teaching it? I've thought about it. I mean, it's once I get settled in the States, I think I'll consider it. Oh, Canon Guy 1 says he takes lessons online. Okay. Do you guys have any thoughts about online piano lessons or online lessons in general, even if you don't play piano? Okay, well, feel free to chat in the box. I'll be reading them. Yeah, so I think online piano lessons are a good idea. Are any of you guys interested in online piano lessons or anything like that? Okay, so Canon Guy 1 says, I love it since my piano teacher is on the other side of the country. Yeah, so online piano lessons gives you access to a lot more different types of talent and different types of people that you can learn from. And all right. Okay, so this next question is from Peter. So Peter says, thoughts on improvisation, your experience and ideas. So Peter, thanks for the question. Improvisation. Improvisation is a skill that some people are naturally better at. Some people have to, you know, kind of work on it, but I feel like everyone can be get themselves up to a level where they can be comfortable improvising in front of a crowd or in front of an audience. And I personally am still working on my improvisation skills because it's a little bit of a hurdle to get over the fact that sometimes people will see your mistakes and you have to be okay with making mistakes, and sometimes you're making major mistakes in front of a lot of people, and improvisation is kind of making sure that you're okay with it, making sure that you know kind of the chord structure or certain chords that sound good next to each other, or how do you combine chords on the fly so that it sounds good with the melody. So I can show you a little bit about what I mean, but a lot of times if you take a pop song or something with a clear melody and you know the melody in the right hand, then you can make up an accompaniment in the left hand. And that's how I learned how to improvise. Shh, don't tell anyone. So it's kind of like a dirty word to say you're memorizing the melody in jazz, but that's what it is. You memorize the melody and then you make up chords to go along with it. So if you know that, for example, the song starts with G chords, you can just play G chords all over in the left hand and then modulate to another key later on, but keep the same patterns. So there's small tricks like that I can show you a little bit later. And it's actually a lot of fun. It's kind of cool when you can demonstrate, you know, a melody that you hear, and you can demonstrate a song that you like. Okay, so we are on time today. See what preparation does? Thanks, Pan. Pan reminded me to start the stream. Are you still there, Pan? Okay. I think the feed is delayed, so when I try to talk to anyone, they don't hear me yet. Oh, you're still here, Pan. Coop, what do you play? Thanks for the question. I'll put it in the queue and I will try to get to it soon. Okay, I play a lot of classical music. I play a lot of jazz as well. Lately I've been playing a lot of jazz. I'm just going to move the camera so that you can see the piano. Okay. Okay, how's that? There, you can see the piano and you can see me. Hi. Okay, so, oh, it's a little bright. Hang on. How's that? Something like that. Okay, so welcome to my piano again. Today I'm gonna play some jazz pieces. Let's see if, yeah. Today I'm gonna play some jazz pieces, and I'm still working on these. I picked these up on Wednesday, and I've played them over a couple times. They are jazz, so they're not meant to be over practiced, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it. These are Christmas pieces. The first one is called Mary's Boy Child, and I'm aware that not everyone celebrates Christmas, and it's not going to be, you know, I don't hope to make it political or anything, but I just like the melody, and I hope you guys do too. there it is. I hope you all liked it. And yeah, that's the first one. It's kind of jazzy, and the good thing about this one, this kind of music, is that it's written for a classical pianist, so they write out all the syncopations and everything, and it's a good starting point if you are starting to play jazz and starting to improvise and all that fun stuff. So the other one is also a Christmas piece. It is called The Christmas Song, and it's also kind of a jazzy piece. Hello, so that's a Christmas song. It's also called Chestnuts Roasting, and I thought I would play something a little bit, slower to contrast with last time. Thank you. Hope you guys liked it. And in terms of improvisation, so I can give you a quick intro on improvisation as I learned it. So for example, if you know that a song starts with, let's say, what's one? If you know the melody is. So this is a G and B flat, and you know, it's a minor song. You can kind of deduce that it's probably a G minor chord. So what you can do is play something like that. G, G7, E sounds good, and kind of figure out what sounds good against that melody. And so if that's the thing you're going for, you could be like, you know, figure out what chord goes with the melody that you're playing with at the moment. And you can play with different patterns. So there's that one, there's definitely so different versions of triads you can try. You can try different variations of arpeggios. You can try chords like. You can try like. It kind of depends on what mood you're looking for and what kind of song you're trying to play. Okay, so moving on. We are on time. I just now want to answer some live questions that we got earlier. Are there any more questions, Pan? It's just a little bit hard for me to look at the screen and the live stream. Okay, so live questions that we got. Canon Guy 1 says, any tips for sight reading? So I'm gonna take, let's see, an old piece of music to show you. That's a really good question, Canon Guy. I like canons too. This is, I'm sure you can see it, Rachmaninoff. It's Prelude in G minor, and I can kind of do a quick intro on how to make your sight reading go better. So this is kind of complicated. Even when I look at it, it's like, what are all these chords? Thankfully, you know, these are octaves. So what I kind of do is I look over the piece and I try to see what's more difficult or what's more, what will be more time consuming. And I also section out all the pieces of the music that looks similar. So you see this looks kind of similar, so that's another section that's happening. And I kind of divide the piece up like that. And you can see that this part is exactly the same as the beginning. And that happens a lot in pieces because that's how music works. We like hearing repetition. So that's kind of what I do. And then when I sight read, it depends on what context I'm sight reading under. If I'm trying to sight read and learn a piece quickly, then I usually try to play all the notes properly and correctly, and I try to find the melody, and whatever else I'm playing, I try to get the melody right. So in this case, the melody is near the top. If you're sight reading around people and people are kind of watching you learn, it's a good idea to only focus on the melody. And for example, if you know the melody is near the top, it's like this. So I'm going to focus more on making the melody right. And, you know, you can see these octave jumps in the bottom. I might not make them the first couple times around, and that's totally fine when you're sight reading. Other sight reading tips, whatever you do, try to keep on beat and start slow. A piece when you're first learning it, it sounds probably not a lot like what you want it to sound like. So a lot of times if you just try to keep the beat, even if you're playing slow, it'll sound a lot better. And I'm talking about sight reading in terms of playing it the very first time you see it, not really in terms of learning the piece, because of course, if you're learning the piece, you want to break the piece down into little small chunks and learn those little chunks separately. And I think, a lot of this is about, again, practicing pieces. And there are sight reading resources and books that you can get from the music store where you have different pieces of small passages to play every so often, every day, and you'll be able to learn more quickly that way, because you're exposed to a lot of different kinds of music. And okay, what else is there? Do you guys have any? Does that make sense? Does that help? Do I leave notes out if it's a complicated piece of music? When I'm first sight reading it, the very first time, as in I'm trying to learn it, I try not to leave notes out. Again, it depends on the kind of piece. So if it's a classical piece like Rachmaninoff, for example, then I try really hard to not leave notes out, because after the first time your fingers get used to playing it a certain way, then it's really, really easy to repeat certain mistakes. Now, if you're playing a jazz piece, something like this, it's more free, and a lot of the notes are kind of more like suggestions rather than requirements, then it's totally fine to leave notes out. Is this better to see me? Okay, how about this? So the answer is, depends what you're doing the sight reading for. If you're learning it for yourself, then don't leave notes out. But if you're just kind of playing around and people are around you and you're kind of trying to share your talents, then it's a good idea to focus on the melody and leave notes out if you're trying to showcase a certain piece like that. Okay, next thing, let's see, do we have any more time for questions? Oh, no. How are you guys doing? I'm just kneeling on the ground right now because it's really hard to bend over the piano and also for anyone to see my face. Okay. Okay, I can talk about some of my favorite practice techniques, because practicing piano is, everyone says practice piano, practice, practice makes perfect, but no one really teaches you how to practice, and I kind of had to learn how to practice, and I kind of had to learn all these pitfalls and all these wrong ways of practicing before I stumbled upon these so-called practice hacks that help me practice better. And I think it should be more commonly taught. And one of my favorite ones is, let's say you have a so let's say you have something like this. And then so you have a run like that. it's a run. And sometimes you're like, or I'm exaggerating. So sometimes it's hard to hit all the notes. One of my favorite practice techniques is instead of slowing it down, you're syncopating it. So every other note, you pretend it's a grace note. And it trains your fingers to connect all these notes together. And next thing you do is you switch it. So the opposite one is a grace note. And it doesn't matter how long you hold the long note for. The point is that you connect the short one to the long one. And then at the very end, you'll find that it's a lot more smooth and you'll get more of the notes. So make sure you practice all the patterns though. And then over time you can see, how connecting the notes like that will make sense in your brain. Practice techniques. So that's my favorite one. I guess we don't have to go into more. There's teaching. People wanted to know about teaching ideas. So a lot of times when I taught piano, I found that sometimes people had trouble with sight reading or ear training, and it's a really good idea to play games, especially with beginners. If you're a beginner, it's a good idea to kind of, there's a game called High and Low, which I really enjoy, where you play, let's say, two groups of black keys. So let's say you're playing this one and this one, and you ask the student which one is higher, which one is lower. That's like a intro to ear training. Ear training in general, I think, is a very important skill, and if you can do it with your students when you're teaching piano, that's a really good idea, because a lot of times when people are practicing by themselves at home, it's harder to practice ear training. There's also different ways of breaking a piece down. Sometimes you can break a piece down so that students are given this section to play for 1 week. If they don't get it, then they don't move on to the next section. Are there any specific teaching tips that you guys are interested in? Because the question I got was pretty general. Oh, okay, so I got a question called about tips for trills. So let's say you're playing this trill, you're like, ooh, this is a nice chord. So it depends on which fingers you're trilling on. My fingers are pretty big. I can reach an octave and one note. So it doesn't really matter to me if it's like a far trill. We're generally better with trills with these fingers. So if you're just starting out, try to make your fingering so that you're playing with these two from 2 and 3. 3 and 4, harder. 4 and 5, not as hard as 3 and 4, but still try to play it with these two, especially if it's a long trill. If it's like an ornament or something like that, make sure you got your fingering down. Practice your fingering, practice your fingering, practice your fingering, practice your fingering. I used to have really bad fingering, as in I would make up my new fingering every single time I played, and so it would mess me up. Make sure you have consistent fingering. Make sure you work out your fingering one time and then play the same thing over and over again. Hanon really helps with trills. Let me give you an example of Hanon. This is Hanon. I am a believer in Hanon. Anyone who says they're a non-believer in Hanon, I think perhaps there's a chance that they're not doing it correctly, or perhaps they have an injury or something like that that's not suitable. There's Hanon trills for specific fingers in this book, so it's called The Virtuoso Pianist in 60 Exercises for the Piano, and I can send you a link later. There's an exercise for your pinky fingers, so let's see. And it doesn't really matter to me how fast you play it. You can start slow. And then there's different drills like this. And the good thing about it is that you're playing the same thing in both hands, so that when you go up, so you see how I'm playing the trill drill with these two fingers, 3 and 4 on the left hand and 2 and 3 on the right hand. And then when I'm coming down, I'm working 2 and 3 here and 3, 4 here. So Hanon is a really good resource for practicing trills. Fingering is a big one, making sure the timing is good. So trills in the classical sense are not supposed to delay the beats around them. If you find that you're pushing all the notes back because of your trill, then you're probably not playing it fast enough. Same thing, you can use the exercise I showed you about the grace notes. Make sure you can hear all the notes clearly. So to sum up, make sure the timing works, make sure you can hear all the notes correctly, making sure that your fingers are strong enough, and making sure your fingering is correct. Does that help? Okay, well, thank you for coming. Oh, I love Hanon too. So here I want to thank everyone for coming. It's been a lot of fun, and it's one of my favorite ways to spend my Saturday morning now. Thanks so much for your questions. If you have any follow-up questions, please feel free to send them to me. I'm also on social media. You can follow me on Instagram. It's Let Grace Smile. At Twitter, it's Already Done. And on Facebook, it's also Already Done. So I'll be coming out with more articles and some videos. I have some, I filmed some piano playing videos as well. But it's been a lot of fun for the past little bit to hang out with you guys, and I hope you guys learned something, or I hope you guys found it interesting to see me play some of my music. It definitely was a challenge to play the jazz piece because I've only played it probably total of like 3 times, and jazz isn't my strongest genre, but everyone has to push themselves out of their comfort zone. So yeah, and if you have any other comments, questions, feel free to email me. There's also, I love getting comments on my blog. If you guys leave me a comment, I will be very happy. I read every single one, and sometimes I can't respond to all of them, but I promise you I do read every single comment that I get, and it makes me really happy. So yeah, and also Pan is in the chat box here, so if you guys want to say hi to him, he's a real person. Everything on my blog is real. Okay, well, have a great Saturday, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!